Thank you for joining us on the Real Authentic People podcast. My name is Maya.
And I'm Sade.
And I'm Donna.
And we are ran by the Diversity and Equity Center. We aim to be a transformative, anti-oppressive space that disrupts white dominant culture and inspires marginalized students to unapologetically take up space and be leaders and decision makers of social change in our communities.
Here at the DEC, we have 3 affinity programs, the first of which is called Thrive. And Thrive aims to create a supportive and validating space for women of color to show up unapologetically as their full selves. We focus on developing leadership skills to support women of color students on campus, examining systems of power, privilege, and oppression as it relates to walk experiences, and building lasting relationships and connections. The second affinity program that we have here is the Men of Color Affinity Group, or MOCA. And MOCA is dedicated to fostering a supportive community that empowers men of color through dialogue, mentorship, and advocacy. We aim to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion by addressing issues of identity, masculinity, and social justice while providing a space for personal and academic growth.
Our third affinity program is QFAM. QFAM is a support program for LGBTQIA identifying students. They engage in study sessions, fun activities, identity exploration, community building, and forming connections with other LGBTQIA identifying faculty and staff all across campus. Here at the DEC, we also offer 2 other programs, one of which is called Culture Corner, which is a place to foster discussion around socially relevant topics.
Our second program is Find Your People, which is a space to collaborate with student organizations and clubs across campus to facilitate community building opportunities around certain identities. Past Find Your People events have included First Time in College, LGBTQ plus BIPOC, bisexual identities, and multiracial students.
Okay. It's been a hard week. And here at the Real Authentic People podcast, we have to stay true to our mission statements. And we cannot shy away from topics that affect our communities. As real people, we have to be raw people as well. We have to show not everything is perfect.
Right.
Sometimes we do take a step back. And I feel like today is the perfect day to talk about that.
So recently, lawmakers proposed a bill that could seriously limit the use of DEI programs in institutions. This proposal came out just right before the release of the Dear Colleague letter that went out from the Department of Education and is a part of a growing trend to restrict how race, gender, and other identity factors are considered in state-supported education and jobs. So we have a small excerpt. I just want to preface with saying that the letter was already 4 pages long. And me personally, everything in this letter was very important and a little bit disgusting. A lot of it disgusting. So it was really hard to go from 4 pages to a small amount of reading. So I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a lengthy read. 6 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution, and other relevant authorities. In recent years, American educational institutions have discriminated against students on the basis of race, including white and Asian students, many of whom come from disadvantaged backgrounds and low-income families. These institutions embrace of pervasive and repugnant race-based preferences and other forms of racial discrimination have emanated through every facet of academia. For example, colleges, universities, and K-12 schools have routinely used race as a factor in admissions, financial aid, hiring, training, and other institutional programming. In a shameful echo of a darker period in this country's history, many American schools and universities even encourage segregation by race at graduation ceremonies and in dormitories and other facilities. This is another separate part of the letter. Educational institutions have toxically indoctrinated students with the false premise that the United States is built upon systemic and structural racism and advanced discriminatory policies and practices. Proponents of these discriminatory practices have attempted to further justify them, particularly during the last 4 years, under the banner of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, smuggling racial stereotypes and explicit race consciousness into everyday training, programming, and discipline. This is another excerpt from a different part of the letter as well. Other programs discriminate in less direct but equally insidious ways. DEI programs, for example, frequently preference certain racial groups and teach students that certain racial groups bear unique moral burdens that others do not. Such programs stigmatize students who belong to particular racial groups based on crude stereotypes. Consequently, they deny students the ability to participate fully in the life of a school. The department will no longer tolerate the overt and covert racial discrimination that has become widespread in this nation's educational institutions. The law is clear. Treating students differently on the basis of race to achieve nebulous goals such as diversity, racial balancing, social justice, or equity is illegal under controlling Supreme Court precedent.
So yeah, a big step back. Not even a step, more like multiple steps. I hate the word DEI. I hate not the word. No, the word. I hate the. It's kind of like when we talk about feminism. It's like I am a feminist. However, I don't like how sometimes it's practiced. This is kind of how I feel about DEI in the sense of I don't like the way it's generally perceived as. I feel like it's generally perceived as, oh, we're giving them a chance. Sometimes it even feels like pity. It doesn't even feel like it's like pity for a dog.
Yes.
I'm a person at the end of the day. The fact that you are confining me to the walls of DEI and not to the walls of just actually confining me, period. Not just like letting me grow my wings outside of just being a DEI person, a token person. And it sucks to read things like this.
Right.
Things like this.
To
laws like
you,
this.
and I don't know, like the fact that this is something that me personally, like we live in, we pursue and stuff, and they send out this letter and it's using words like insidious and toxic and stuff. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god. And I just want to point out, DEI is not hiring an unqualified person for a job simply because they're a person of color. DEI is not hiring based on race just to meet diversity goals. Like, that's literally illegal. And DEI work has been going on for so many years under different labels, different program names and stuff. So it's like, this feels like an erasure of decades and decades and decades of movement and social justice. We've discussed so many times our media, our education, our institutions have continuously fed us these micro doses of racism our entire lives. So it's like, of course, if you're not a part of, if you're a part of a particular demographic where your image is not being microdosed in order to perpetuate racism, it's like, obviously you aren't gonna get it. And it's like, that's the thing about white privilege too. Like I'm not saying just because, I don't know, like you're white, you automatically have a better financial position than me or something like that. It's simply the fact that you are going to have the opportunity in the future to pursue a better financial position than people like me.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we move on?
I think that even though we are like a pretty progressive state, Washington being like the latest front of this is actually like kind of scary, because as you guys know, like these kind of bills started popping up in the South, and they've kind of made their way like to here from like Florida and Texas and stuff. So
That's
it's
just
like,
a dystopian place.
I know.
That shit don't even feel real.
I know.
And it's like, okay, this is off topic, but it's like when you grow up in a bubble and you think and you understand and you know in your soul that you are not wrong, all you can do is live your truth. Put you on a lie detector test right now. Racism doesn't even exist because that's the truth that they live. And I just find it so incredibly disrespectful for somebody to exist like that in my presence, period. I find it so egregious of you to simply drain the life out of me by asking me why I deserve to live the way that you and your family think you deserve to. Let's spin the question. Why do you think you deserve property? Why do you think you deserve land? Why do you think you deserve equity? Why do you think you deserve money? You're not entitled to any of this. You are entitled to all of this. So that's the problem. That's the problem. And I think that people need to highlight is that they just live with in my opinion, they live with the understanding of the right to exist. And we live in the deficit of that. We can only talk about our experiences in proximity to whiteness. We can only talk about our proximity to our own cultures in the absence of whiteness, in the eyes of white people. We've been having this problem where we've been okay with existing on the sidelines. If people can stop confusing aesthetic for revolution, confusing aesthetic for real change, we don't care about your blue bracelets. We don't care. That's manipulation. Manipulation without boundaries. Hey. I don't know that.
Whoa.
An article that I read that was talking about the idea of vulnerability and how vulnerability without boundaries is just confirmation, manipulation, and confession. It's not actually genuine. And I feel like we see that a lot with a certain audience.
Right.
Exactly. And I also just want to preface this. It is also very, very hypocritical for a person of a certain demographic to say, oh, I don't think I'm comfortable existing here in this 2-hour time frame because we're not explicitly talking about me, explicitly talking about what I've been through, or explicitly talking about how I'm suffering too because of poverty. So let's dead that conversation and let's start a new one. Let's start one where we talk about poverty and intersectionality. Let's talk about a new one where we talk about how people get to this country and what they got to do to survive. What are you willing to do to survive? Let me know. Put it in the comments. Because I could promise you, half the things that people do in this country to survive, people are freezing in their cars. 2 children dead the other day before their mama got help. If we're not going to start opening our eyes and realizing that not everything is about white people or white gays or what they got going on, but it's about our own communities and pouring back into our people, you got to do the knowledge. If you don't do the knowledge and understand where your people have come from and what you've been through, you're not going to get nowhere. But to be that person who holds all of society's power, systemic power, that's been passed down through generations through genetic code, is just disgusting to tell me or anybody else who has died 1,000 times the way that I have in the past 2 hours that you're uncomfortable for this 2-hour period. If you could talk to any of our grandparents and listen to their stories, they are telling you the exact same story with a different font and a different year. Newsflash, babe, you woke up, it's 1960 again. So either we figure it out or we don't.
First of all, that ate really hard.
Did.
Thanks.
I have goosebumps. And another thing to add on to that is that, like, you know, the timing of this bill, the Dear Colleagues letter,
Yes.
all of this, legal moves are so closely tied to these national efforts.
Yes.
And it's like, again, let's think about what just went on in our electoral system this past few months, this past year. And this is why I can't stand the rhetoric of, oh, not everything is political. In my opinion, our existence has now become political to the people who have just been put in charge of our country. My resistance has now become political.
Exactly.
So it's like, yes, everything to me is about politics, and everything for me is political, because look what just got told about people like us. Like,
exactly.
and it's like people who have that rhetoric of like, not everything is political, not everything is about race. You live in a state of privilege.
Delusion. Sorry.
Rose-tinted delusion. That's what that should be. That's what that should be called. But I think it's important to look at where these type of bills are coming from. Mm-hmm. What ties do they have to the antebellum South? What ties do they have to literally hanging and selling people as cattle? And it'd be places like Florida. So in Florida, as an example, Public colleges aren't even allowed to use state money for DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives or give any special treatment to students who support DEI.
And this is happening in Texas too. Texas has similar rules banning public colleges from having DEI offices, asking for DEI statements, or requiring DEI training.
And in Tennessee, public colleges cannot insist on diversity training for certain degrees, nor can they use state funds to promote what's deemed a divisive concept.
And in North Dakota, schools can't even ask students or job applications about their commitment to DEI. And a little hop, skip, and a jump to South Dakota, employees at public universities can't showcase their preferred gender pronouns or tribal affiliations in their email signatures. On top of all of this, these laws have ended up shutting down multicultural and LGBTQ plus centers, making it tougher for students to access information and resources on important topics like sexual assault and financial aid.
On that note, I do want us to kind of discuss what is considered DEI because I did some research. You would be surprised, but also it makes a lot of sense. Hiring veterans. Veterans are considered to be a DEI hire.
Wow.
I'm not smiling.
That kind of makes you think.
Did y'all read before?
Right.
Actually, in my opinion, did y'all read before?
No, they be barking at them bugs.
Y'all, why is a more relaxed and inclusive dress code policy a part of DEI?
Yes.
I actually chose. There was another school I was going to choose, and it was a private school of a religious affiliation, more on the western side of ideals, and they had a dress code of I probably couldn't even wear what I'm wearing right now, like because it's too form fitting, and I was like, oh, my wardrobe does not work for this school, so I am not going to this school. I can't imagine this being imposed on every single school. Those Lululemons are going to go. Sorry, guys. I mean, I don't wear it personally, but the Lulus got to go.
If you do, it's a little questionable. Y'all, I think why is ramps and sidewalks considered DEI? I feel like if these are all things that we're going to take away, like some of these things are just so like, it makes sense so everybody can get to this place. It makes sense so everybody, every single person can benefit from this. I'm just taking it back.
It's about we are trying to make equitable opportunities in everything in this world, but, you know, what do I know?
Speaking on the transportation and like the geographical landscape, accessible bikes and public transportation accommodations, I don't think, to me, that's insane. Because one, carbon footprint, thank you.
That part.
And two, at least in the town of Ellensburg, I was a little bus girl in the summer, and I didn't realize how many people actually used, like, I know it's like a small bus in Ellensburg, but like it's to the point where like there are regulars for obvious reasons, and there are people who are unable to, I don't know, wheelchair their way over to a store for obvious reasons. Your arms get tired. It's easy. We have a bus. Let's use it.
Oh. What I also think is great is what's considered to be DEI is businesses not becoming fully cashless.
I understand why that's DEI. Like that's real. Because to make a business completely cashless makes it what's it called, inaccessible.
Exactly. So that's why I'm just like, I understand why these why, you know, but like if these were something to be theoretically not something that we could do, then we're just being, like we said, limited access.
And it's like, okay, and it's like let's I want to discuss this actually. What, like, there's so many things that go into simply getting like a card, you know what I mean? Like you need to have certain things, like to open a bank account you need a social security number, and you need to be like having access consistently to one, your bank, or two, a cell phone to check your banking app. Like there's a lot of privilege essentially that goes into simply having a card, which is
Exactly.
crazy to think about.
There's so many different levels, like prerequisites that you gotta hit before you can even get to the main goal.
Yes, and these prerequisites are something that come. It's all stuff that comes with like you
With-
know privilege, like
Yes.
and it's like oh my god, like are we not seeing the bigger picture? Shayla, my Shayla.
Oh.
I think we kind of already like figured this anyway, but
Yeah.
um, parental leave, time and pay, and coming back to a job after birthing a child is considered a DEI initiative.
Anti-woman, in my opinion. In my opinion. In my
Yeah.
opinion. In my opinion.
That's just our opinion.
That's just my opinion. What? So I'm confused. Y'all don't want to have families that thrive and prosper? Like, I'm confused.
Right. And another DEI initiative that I just want to point out: non-smoking areas / the end of indoor smoking. I just think we should recognize that is something on the table, and you know, not awesome. One, for your health to be inhaling secondhand smoke all the time, but what do I know?
We're only DEI hires.
Oh, and you know what? I'll throw in another one. Changing tables in men's restrooms.
Oh, that's so DEI, Evelyn.
So DI.
All this does is literally perpetuate the whole, like, traditional. Like, this is a traditional
Yes.
like, the whole, coming back to a job after birthing a child. No, like, obviously, in the nicest way possible. Who's gonna want to do that? Like, right, like, the day after I have a child, okay, time to come back to work. Huh?
Girl, my body hasn't even went
What?
back to the size it's supposed to be yet.
And then all that does is, like, make the parent want to quit because someone has to be home with the child. I'm not just going to pay for daycare for a newborn. What? Unless you have a very strong, like, village to the point where, like, your family has the luxury to not have to work and can drop everything and take care of that newborn. You know what I mean? And then the whole not having changing tables in the men's restroom because that's the woman's job. In my opinion, from what I've
No real.
grasped throughout my years. This is insane. If this does theoretically end up happening, it's insane.
Crazy.
And for all the people that dietary restrictions, allergies, various food options for vegetarians, vegans, kosher, gluten-free, etc. at medical facilities.
They said, all y'all got to go.
Giving natural selection.
It's
I
getting
don't like that.
That's crazy.
This is all giving a very slow, in my opinion, a very slow and calculated eugenics movement.
Mm.
And we see this all throughout history. And if you guys don't know what eugenics is, it's basically the cleansing of a particular group. We've seen this in the deaf community not too long ago, actually, here in America. And we didn't see it. And, like, obviously, who talks about it? In the history books, we don't really talk about it unless you take an ASL class, which I did, which is why I ended up knowing about this. But you don't see it in the sense of, like, in extremes. You always see it in very little increments. It's like we said, the microdosing of, like, oh, well, deaf children are not, this is just an example. Deaf children are not seen as, like, actual humans. Like, they literally would feed them like they would a dog. Like, you were not allowed at the table. Like, that was socially acceptable for deaf children. And then we'd see, excuse if this is, I guess, too, not even I guess, excuse if this is too graphic, but they would they thought that deafness was hereditary. So they would mutilate the genitalia to ensure no, producing of families. And it's stuff like that we don't just see with, like, I'm just using deaf children because, like, I'm going to assume that not very many people know about this, that this happened with deaf children. But this also happens a lot with people of color. And it's like, just like we didn't hear about it with these deaf children, we don't hear about it with these communities of color because it happens so slowly to the point where you just consider it to be normal. Once it finally happens, that's when you finally put it in the history books, and then you analyze it. And then at that point, what are we? 6 feet underground.
Right. I don't want to wait 50 or 100 years or generations or whatever for stories like this to be looked at, because it's like I want us to be talking about this now so that it doesn't like impact or destroy society later, because it's like what we're going to have like a really dystopian screwed up society studying like all this time that everything that has just happened right now, and people are going to study it in a few hundred years and they're going to be like potentially not in like a good social or economic position because of what is happening today. They're just gonna sit around and be like, wow, nobody stood up.
It's going to be censored.
Yeah.
But that's like, it's the issue. All of it will be censored because all of our textbooks do come from one place. Y'all can look it up if you want to look at which place the textbooks mainly come from, but
That part.
it doesn't come from where we come from. I'll tell you that right now. Like, the state that we come from, it doesn't come from here. Just saying. So there will be erasure of a lot of this, like, these conversations unless we do something now.
Doing something now, like Donna said, is doing more than just protesting and going outside and doing something. Doing something now means calling out of work and prioritizing your mental health. Doing something now means genuine rest for the soul. Doing something now means passive agitation through non-compliance, passive agitation through loving moments with your family, experiencing joy in the way that your people experience joy and passing it on. Doing something now is simply are beneficial to the roots in your life. And passive resistance and agitation adds up and it creates real power and it creates a real dynamic and it creates real conversation and it can change the world. Now, we're not telling y'all to get up and go do some cray. We're telling you to put yourself first, understand where your biases are coming from, understand where you get your information from, and understand who your heroes are, and you may need to diversify them.
Every Friday when we just talk, and it's just like, ugh, they just inspire me all the time. And I just
And honestly, these are the conversations that keep me going, because
Yeah.
it's like, it's awesome to know that, like, you know, you're not the only one that like cares about continuing these conversations, because like you said, these conversations are resistance. These conversations are self-care. Like, there's so much that you can do for yourself to sustain yourself in joy and education and knowledge. So it's just like, I don't ever want moments like this to get away from me or end.
And it's incredibly isolating to feel like you have nobody to talk to about things like this. But I feel like here on the podcast, we literally just proved that there is someone who does care. I mean, clearly, this room of 3 Claires. So it's just like, and so if you do want to continue these conversations, you can always come to the DEC.
We're located in Black Hall 101. We're open Monday through Fridays, 10 to 7. On Fridays, we close at 5. And as always, the rap cares. This was the Real Authentic People podcast. My name is Maya.
And I'm Sade.
And I'm Donna.
Bye.
Bye.